Hello, welcome to our Tuesday evening City Council meeting. Thank you all for joining us. We will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we will be led by our superintendent, our senior educator in the room, Cenk Langlis.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't think there are any loose end leads this evening, Madam Clerk, so we are ready to begin.
Excellent, great. All roll call votes for this meeting will begin with the Councilor of Ward 4, and we will also note for the record that Councilors Scott and Gelinas both have excused absences this evening.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. May I have a motion to accept the minutes?
And actually, Mr. Mayor, I'll just clarify, we didn't finalize those in time to get those to you, so we'll get those to you for the next meeting.
We're not going to be accepting any minutes this evening.
Correct.
Excellent.
Yes, thank you so much.
We are now up to public comment. Any member of the public may make comments regarding issues pertaining to Lewiston City Government. This period is reserved for non-agenda items. Public comment is also allowed during individual agenda items. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Please state your name for the record, and please indicate if you are a Lewiston resident. Because this is the business meeting of the City Council, all questions should be directed to the mayor, who will ask staff to follow up at a future time. It is illegal for the City Council to allow comments related to personnel matters. All personnel complaints should be made directly to the City Administration Office. Please continue.
Hi, my name is Tom Murphy. I'm the president of Lewiston Police Union for the Patrol and Detective Division. I'm here in that capacity today to address the mayor and a couple other elected officials and advocates in the city who, in my opinion, are trying to pit the community against the police department. I would also like to address the said community and tell you that we are not your enemy here. We only care about the well-being of the city and its safety. It's impossible for me to look at this current situation and not see certain politicians trying to spin a tragic situation into a political gain for their re-elections. As mayor of the city, if you truly were concerned about the community, then you should be focused on job opportunities, better education, the housing crisis, or even the drug epidemic that you can step outside and see in the park. But instead, it appeared that these legitimate issues present too great a challenge. So we start focusing on other problems that aren't really there to create the appearance of finding a solution for it. The latest political tactic being used by the mayor is his ad hoc committee on public safety. Folks, you only have to look at the list of people who've been appointed and it starts raising some eyebrows. You know, it's my understanding there was no input from the Lewiston Police Department on any of the committee selection members, and requests for input on committee member selection was denied by the mayor. It's also my understanding, I may be incorrect, but that there are convicted felons and domestic abusers on this committee and people from outside the city of Lewiston. Is this how we really want to see Lewiston represented? The men and women of this Lewiston Police Department, time and time again, have stepped up for this community. They donate countless hours of their own personal time, work unbelievable hours during all sorts of situations. We've worked through pandemics, protests, and individuals from this very city calling for our defunding. As a union president, I can say that we're going to be exploring all options for elected positions and supporting candidates who demonstrate that they truly have the committee's best interest at heart. I want to be clear with you, Carl. I do not support you for re-election. It is sad to see the political tactics that I feel that you're using in play at this time when uniting this community should be your goal. For those who do support us, I want to thank you and, thank everybody during these troubling times.
Further public comment?
My name is Peg Hoffman. I live at 2 Clare Street in Lewiston. I'm a member of Trinity Episcopal Church, and I am here again to urge you to work together on implementing the 8 recommendations of the Task Force on Homelessness. Every day that passes leaves our most vulnerable neighbors with nowhere to come out of the elements, either cold rain or hot sun, nowhere to take care of basic necessities like a bathroom, a shower, a laundry, nowhere truly safe to sleep. Winter is coming. There is tremendous risk coming for them if there are insufficient shelter beds in our community. Being unhoused can happen to anyone, given circumstances of compromised mental or physical health, loss of a low-wage job that never paid enough to save for an emergency. Being trapped in a cycle of addiction with insufficient treatment resources and barriers from the criminal justice system, or family disruption for youth or victims of domestic violence. Ask case managers, ask the police in our community, what is the primary element that undermines their ability to assist individuals into recovery and stability? It's inadequate emergency shelter, low barrier with wraparound services. Members of City Council, with your votes and the votes of your predecessors, have systematically and intentionally limited those resources. We need real commitment to our downtown neighborhoods, our residents and our businesses, and more wisdom and compassion from you. We have allowed you to erect more barriers to taking care of our most vulnerable neighbors, even as we know we are called to see in their faces the face of Jesus. Amen. You have the power to help them. We will continue to pray that all of you will deliberate, allocate administrative resources, and vote with hearts for mercy and justice, for wisdom and goodness. Thank you.
Hey everybody, Luke Jensen, Ward 5, 11 Sylvan Avenue. A couple of things I wanted to talk about. First is I wanted to put in a plug for the good folks on Rachel Boulevard over in Ward 4. The north side of the loop part of the road is just, I'm sure Councilor Lashpell would agree, it's very bad. I grew up in that neighborhood and I don't think it's been paved in my lifetime. And I'm 32. So I know that there's a plan for public works and I don't think we should, mess with that. I'm just saying maybe it's possible that it's gotten worse since it was last evaluated. The part of the road is kind of like it's almost like a speed bump going down the length of the road in the middle. And so when it rains, it floods a lot of the yards and creates a lot of sand pits essentially and creates slipping, hazards. And then in the winter, the plows can never plow it quite right. And so again, more slippery, slipping hazards. And I know myself, I have a musculoskeletal disorder, and so I don't always walk as easily as people might think. And so even walking down that street this summer, I was having some issues with the sand. So if that could be looked into again, maybe it's gotten worse, that would be great. The other thing, well, I guess some news media are here. I'd certainly wish the news media would focus a little bit more on the issues in Lewiston rather than just these single things that pop up. I wish the news media would do a better job of teaching people in Maine and Lewiston, and the entire state and region, why we have the issues that we have in Lewiston, how they're not self-inflicted, some are, but most aren't, how we've been drastically underfunded in education. The funding formula has absolutely been unfair, and I would love to have news media kind of dig into that, really. So as much as I like to see you guys showing up to cover events like this, you should be covering Lewiston a little bit more. We're not just some community outside of Portland. We have issues. Lewiston's taken on a lot of the brunt of social services that are provided to people in Maine. We've taken in some of the most vulnerable people in Maine. And so to just come up here and get like a 30-second clip of some issue where you're not going to put in context what's happening tonight, I don't think. And so, if you want to pit Lewiston as like being anti-whatever, pro-whatever fits the narrative, that's just what's going to happen. But I certainly hope the media can maybe do a better job of getting into Lewiston, talking to the people, and realizing the policy behind it, the political science of why Lewiston is in the position that it's in. So, again, not really directed at you guys. That's more the media and how you're covered. But it's just, I feel like a lot of the problems in Lewiston, it's not really a branding, marketing, really image. It's just people don't know what's going on. It's lack of information. And if people knew exactly what was going on in the city, then I don't think there'd be as much disagreement. We'd all kind of realize, okay, we may not agree on this, but we all realize the right path moving forward. This is the most responsible thing. Oh, if we do this, it's going to hurt our school funding, so maybe we need to reconsider. So I'm just confident that if we had more information as a city, we wouldn't be so divisive. And so that's where I think the media can come into play. Not just TV stations down in Portland, but the Sun Journal as well Could maybe do a better job of analyzing, events rather than just reporting on them. But again, that's all beyond what you guys do as government, so just wanted to put a plug in for that. Thanks.
My name is Amy Ranger, and I know that you'll be addressing in the agenda later some zoning things with housing, but I'm not sure if this covers that category, so I'll begin.
Excuse me, so
Yes.
if you are going to be talking about a specific agenda item, we need to do that during public comment for that agenda item.
Okay.
Are you going to be, are your comments regarding a specific agenda item?
I'm not sure.
You may want to let her continue and cut her
All
off
right.
if it does.
Yeah, all right, well, yeah, I guess please continue and we'll go from there.
I'm a teacher at Lewiston High School and a single mother. The cost of living is devastating in 2023. I'll be frank, my salary is not enough to cover my expenses. Without child support from my daughter's father, and without an earned income tax credit, I wouldn't be able to afford my apartment right now. This is untenable. I feel outraged learning that the temporary housing project at the Ramada is now likely dead. The article in the Lewiston Sun Journal and Friday reported that one of the reasons they looked at the site is the current need for housing for single parents with children, since local shelters don't allow children. However, many have argued that multifamily housing at the hotel would negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood and would take away a hotel conference center at the city's gateway. I understand that large multifamily housing units shift neighborhoods, but it does not devastate them. What devastates a community is having members of the community homeless. In what world are we valuing a hotel and conference center at the city's gateway over affordable housing for single parents? We had an opportunity to open a hotel as transition housing, and we really just said no room at the inn. As a struggling working parent, I ask that you do everything in your power to create more affordable housing. If there is something you can do to change the Ramada housing, please do it. When future projects like this come up, please know that I and many others I know are in support of temporary and affordable housing in your community. And I understand that there's on the agenda talks about zoning things, and I'm a little bit unsure how that works, so I'm sorry if I spoke when I wasn't supposed to. Thank you for your time.
Further public comment? Madam Clerk, I understand we have a consent agenda.
Yes, excuse me, yes, sir. We have 2 items on the consent agenda this evening. Item number 1, order authorizing execution of municipal quitclaim deeds for real estate located at 84 Summer Street, 3 Chelsea Lane, and 58 Reardon Street. And number 2, adoption of meeting schedule for the month of November.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councilor P, seconded by Councilor McCarthy. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6-0.
We are now moving to item number 3.
Yes, item number 3, public hearing on a renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for Melissa's Pub and Grill, 675 Main Street. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment for Melissa's Pub and Grill, 675 Main Street.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councilor LaChapelle, seconded by Councilor Pease. Discussion? Public comment? Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6-0.
Item number 4.
Item number 4, public hearing on a renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for Sonder and Dram Incorporated, 12 Ash Street. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment for Sonder and Dram Incorporated, 12 Ash Street.
May I have a
So
motion,
moved.
please? Councilor McCarthy, seconded by Councilor Pease, or Councilor LaChapelle. Discussion? Public comment? Back to the council. Madam Clerk.
Counselor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6-0.
Agenda item number 5.
Item number 5, public hearing for approval of an outdoor entertainment permit for a musical concert for the Rally for Recovery in Kennedy Park. Requested action, to conduct a public hearing on an application for an outdoor entertainment event in Kennedy Park and to grant a permit for an outdoor entertainment event as required by the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 10, Article 1, Section 10-3, to the Lewiston Area Public Health Committee for an outdoor music concert to be held at Kennedy Park on Saturday, September 30th, contingent upon positive recommendations from the Police Department, Fire Department, Code Health Officer, and Land Use Inspector regarding compliance with all regulations and compliance with all city ordinances.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Councilor McCarthy, seconded by Councilor Harriman. Discussion. Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, or encourage everybody to come out to this. It was a great event last year. Sorry Councilor Jelinas couldn't be here tonight to speak more to it, but she's done a great job helping to put that together. So just hope I can see everyone there on the 30th.
Yes, Councilor Jelinas could not be here this evening, but I know that she's in full support of this, and I appreciate her work on the planning committee. Public comment. Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Council from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6-0.
Item number 6.
Item number 6, public hearing and first passage regarding an amendment to the Parks and Recreation Ordinance to change the time for the closure of various city parks and school grounds, as well as other housekeeping-related items. Requested action, that the proposed amendments to the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 54, Parks and Recreation, regarding the change in time for the closure of various city parks and school grounds receive first passage by a roll call vote, and that the public hearing on said ordinance be continued to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councilor LaChapelle, seconded by Councilor Clement. Discussion. Or, sorry, apologize, councilors. Director Welch, if you'd like to kick us off, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. So there are a couple of things in the ordinance that we're looking to change. I want to take a second to speak specifically to the proposed amendments around specifically Franklin pasture, and reviewing why those are being made, and then how it can be a good launching off point for positive movement for more inclusive recreation in the city itself. So we talked about it, at various workshops and up here before. So we're continuing to see ongoing vandalism and misuse of the facility, especially when the parks are not being used. We've had items stolen from field hockey goals. The home base was stolen from Deshane's, which is a specialty item. We have film of youth climbing on top of soccer goals and using them like balance beams. We're having needles that are being left in the facility. Friday evening after the football game, a hole was cut in one of the backstop netting. We have multiple groups that are using the facility without a permit. Porta potties are being consistently vandalized, and these aren't just, one and done situations. There's a repeat pattern that basically once the snow melts, we have people who are using the facility in not good ways and really not the ways that they were supposed to be using it in general. By limiting Franklin pasture to school use, recreation use, and rentals only, it will remove a lot of the strain off of the facility as well as the city and school staff that have to manage it every day. We did just hold a second Franklin Pasture Park cleanup on Saturday. After 35 emails and follow-up phone calls, we had 7 people who attended the pickup. And we are on the way of having 5 people who are background checked and cleared to be able to run programs, oversee programs, and be more of a volunteer present face at the facility itself. I mean, it's a good start, but ideally, we would really need some more engagement to have that group really moving forward with some goals, and to create a better service for the community. I recognize that closing the facility feels really heavy right now, especially where we know our kids, our youth, our community needs more facility opportunities. But this making the decision about the facility. It gives city and school staff a chance to build a new recreation structure, and the intent is not to lock it up and never open it again. It's actually the complete opposite. We want to increase structured and supervised opportunities. We know that we'll see more favorable behaviors, and we can hold people accountable during times when the facility is being used and being operated. I've had a chance to talk to a couple of community volunteers who are very interested in running sports camps and running adult pickup leagues. And we're already seeing this model. Pickleball is the best version of it. So we have adult volunteers who are going to the site Monday through Friday. If you go to the Anita Murphy tennis courts, you'll see them. And they have a key. They're a trusted volunteer. They unlock everything, set everything up. Folks are playing pickleball there for 5 or 7 hours, and the same volunteers will lock it up and put it home. And that is something very similar that could be happening at Franklin Pasture. So even though the facility itself will be locked up, we would still have vetted volunteers who would have that access, who would work with Director Fuller and myself to make sure that the programs are safe, the facility is safe, the equipment is being used appropriately, and that the community has been educated on how the facility itself should be used in general. We could definitely work on scheduling specific track times, open soccer programs, drop a new kickball, and work around the Lewiston High School and recreation practices and games to make sure we find those open pockets. So that way the kids and the adults who want to use specific parts of the facility will still have that access. So the intent is not to close down access, it's just to create more structured access so that way, again, people are using the facility, again, a little bit more in line with their safety and the public safety in general. Depending on what kind of programs are offered, if the facility is closed, we know that they need to be somewhat structured, and then also a consistent time would be very valuable. If you look at how we run Kennedy Park, there's a little bit of social media presence regarding the pool, but the kids and everybody knows that it's open 12 o'clock, the gates are open, and they're good for 5 hours of swim. So I think it will take a little bit of time, but once folks start to know the schedule of the facility, and we would also do our due diligence to make sure everybody knows what's going on, we're hoping that it will spread, and then we'll have some really good quality programs down the road. Obviously, this process would take extra time and community collaboration and communication. I'm going to just quickly reference item number 11. Adding another position to the department will make this more inclusive model thrive. It'll take it off the ground. It'll get us the extra eyes we need on the facility. It'll put another voice in the community so we can learn more what the community wants. And it's not just for youth. We want to see more adult and more age-inclusive programs as well. I'll talk about that a little bit more down the line. So even though the recommendation specifically for that piece is to close the facility, the intent is to offset that by increasing the number of opportunities that will offer constructive, positive, and structured programs for the city. So that was specifically about Franklin Pasture itself. There's also a piece on there about the Jude's Playground at Marcotte Park, where we would like to close that at 8:30 as well during the summertime, and 6 o'clock during, and same as parks during the non-summer recess hours.
Thank you, Director Walsh. Discussion from the council. Councilor LaChapelle.
Thank you. Director Walsh, earlier on there was complaints about McGraw Park not being able to use it because of the length of the grass and some of those concerns. Have those been addressed? Are we mowing it more? Is it more on a regular timing? And how is the park? How is that facility looking?
So I understand it's better than July. A lot of the parks in the city were wet and there was long grass, and from a recreation perspective, we were hearing calls at multiple facilities just because running the mowers on the long wet grass, it was damage to the mowers, it was a safety risk, and it's not good for the fields like long term. I haven't heard anything recently, but Megan, have you heard anything recently? Yep, so there's been no calls as far as the grass. There are, I know the other concern was potential dog waste. There are signs that are posted up there, and I think we've talked about potentially adding some more signage as needed for that too.
So the field's nice and tight at this point in time?
I haven't been out there today, but I know it's on the regular mowing schedule.
Okay. And how often is it mowed?
You want to come this in?
Of course, we do have limited staff, but we're out there at least once a week. We're also going to be closing it down here in the fairly new future to do work on it. So we are planning on treating that field no different than we do Franklin Pasture natural turf. So it will be treated like a real athletic field, so which does call for more money.
I know we've invested a lot of money into that park to make it available for the citizens. And I know this is an abnormal year with the amount of rain that we've had.
Certainly was.
That's put everybody behind. So thank you for addressing that. Thank you.
Further discussion from the council? Okay. Councilor McCarthy?
Thank you. One question. I know there's one section of Franklin Pasture that has no fencing by the school. You can access it by the high school.
Over near the tennis courts?
Yes. No. The backside of the high school, there's one section of it that's not fenced off.
That might be. You don't check. It's part of the expansion wing?
Yeah, behind that. So is that going to be an issue, keeping that locked up? Is that something we need to look at putting fencing in to,
Yes, sounds like it's already being talked about.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Harriman?
Thank you. Back to McGraw Park, I think there was a plan to put lighting in there so people could play at night. Is the idea to revisit these time restrictions once the lights are up?
For McGraw specifically, I think we could definitely do that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Public comment for this agenda item. Back to the council, or, okay. Councilor Harriman?
Thank you. Just one thing I forgot. So I feel like, I mean, I appreciate all the work that staff is doing. You know, having this new position that we're going to be looking at later in the evening, and setting up these plans. I kind of feel like we should get that stuff in place first before closing it down completely. I mean, one of the things, I've been to, I think, 4 or 5 forums now about community safety, and one of the things that keeps coming up over and over and over is that kids need more places to play and more opportunities to play, especially in an unstructured sort of way, so they can just go whenever. So I appreciate that there are currently some issues. I appreciate all the work you're doing, but I kind of feel like the order should be reversed. Like, we should get this stuff set up and then close, you know, look at limiting access. That's just my opinion.
Administrator Hunter, so this is now the first reading, correct? Yes. And then we're going to have a second reading on do we meet again on the 19th?
Yes.
Okay. And then the ordinance would take effect 30 days after that?
That's correct.
So we're looking at the closure being October 19th?
Correct.
Yeah. So I certainly understand that there's perhaps some decent weather between October 19th and the first snow, with any luck. However, we have received snowfall on Halloween, so I think this is a workable solution in that the field will close. The field closure will coincide with winter, and there's going to be snow on the ground and 10 degrees outside, and this will give time to find this position, get them up to speed, and be ready to go for the spring. I understand it's like not everything, but I think this is a reasonable solution at this point, especially given the turn in weather we're expecting. Councilor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only comment on that is the lighting. There's got to be a way that we can set it up so they're on timers. So when it's let's say it's supposed to close at 8:30, the lights are off at 8:30. I've seen many, and I live right up here, nights that 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, the tennis courts are still lit, and some in the field is still lit. They'll have a game, the game will finish around 9, lights don't go out until after 10 and 11, so we've got to figure out some way of timing them or something.
I know they are on a timer. I'm not sure those specific situations why they were on so late. I do know there was a Sunday night a couple weeks ago that Recreation Department, we had a year-long, sorry, not year-long, a summer-long soccer tournament was happening for adults. And that night, it was a Sunday, they did ask for the lights to be on until 11 o'clock so they could do awards and pictures and stuff. But I do know that the fields are on timers. And unfortunately, I can't speak to why those are on later that night.
Right. No, I understand if there's a function going on, then you know, keep them on later, but when you know the game's done at 8, 9 o'clock, you know, need a little time to clean up, people leave and everything, but they got to be on a timer. This is ridiculous. Thank you.
Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know this past Friday night, on Saturday, I was part of the cleanup, and I spoke with Jason Fuller, and he was there till 11:15 Friday night cleaning up. So you have to have lights on in order for him to clean up. So I'm not saying that that happens all the time, but I know he puts great effort into trying to clean up, especially when there's an event going the next day. So I think there's probably some of the times that you find the lights on, but the lights are on for a reason. Not saying all the time, but I'm saying some of the time. And as far as Councilor Harriman's comments about we're doing it in the reverse direction as far as the fields go, I totally disagree with that. I think it's time that we stop the vandalism first and then focus on reopening under a structure that prevents the vandalism from going forward. I mean, how many thousands and thousands of dollars are we gonna put up with for damage to the taxpayers just keep continually paying that? Because that's who's paying it, the taxpayers. So I think it's important that we stop the vandalism, or at least slow it down significantly with closing it up. And then I really like the approach you're taking as far as scheduling and blocks that it can be open and someone to overlook it. So I think we're moving in the right direction, but I also feel that closing it is the appropriate thing to do. Thank you.
Councillor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't saying that, insinuating that Director Fuller doesn't do an excellent job. He does.
I know that.
My thing is he has control over the fields. He should be able to have control over the lights, so he can shut them when he leaves.
He was there till 11:15 though.
Well, I know. Man. He gives so much time. It's unbelievable what he does. Thank you.
Further comment from the council? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
No.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 5 to 1.
Agenda item number 7.
Item number 7, public hearing and final passage for an amendment to the Zoning and Land Use Code, Appendix A, Article 2, regarding transitional housing units. Requested action, that the proposed amendment to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances, Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 2, Appendix A, Article 2, regarding transitional housing units receive final passage by a roll call vote.
And yes, Councillor Clement?
I move to table this item until such time as we meet with the planning board. I believe it's scheduled next week, and can have a discussion with them in regards to recent events.
I'll second that.
Madam Clerk, did you get all that?
Yes, to postpone this matter until after the meeting, the joint meeting with the planning board has been able to take place.
Correct.
Thank you.
And we are not setting a date right this second. We will revisit that.
Revisit after we've had a chance to discuss this with them.
Okay. Discussion among the council about the vote to table. Madam Clerk, or Councilor Harriman?
Thank you. I just wanted to add that I don't think my opinion on the item will change, but I think it would be helpful to talk with the planning board about this. So I would vote in favor of tabling.
Further comment from the council? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councilor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passed with a vote of 6-0.
We are now up to agenda item number 8.
Yes, item number 8, introduction of the proposed transitional housing moratorium ordinance and setting the public hearing date for a moratorium ordinance on transitional housing to be September 19th, 2023, and directing the city clerk to place public notice accordingly. Requested action to introduce the transitional housing moratorium ordinance and set the public hearing date for a moratorium ordinance on transitional housing to be September 19th, 2023, and direct the city clerk to place public notice accordingly.
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Clement.
I would move to table this until after we've talked with the planning board, and we can at that time discuss, or sometime thereafter, set the required date on this agenda item.
I'll second that also.
Thank you both. And comment among the council. Well, I'm going to comment first here. And just for the public's benefit, we are currently tabling these items, so we are not going to public comment. But should the items come back on the agenda, there will be public notice for those items, and should they be discussed at that time, you'll be able to weigh in at that time. Councillor Harriman.
Thank you. A couple things. One, so this moratorium would be retroactive back to September 5th, if and when it is adopted.
That would be, it could be amenable at that point in time. Unfortunately, I was not aware that was the direction we were headed tonight. So at this point, that's the date that was set. But once it's determined that it needs to be on the agenda again, we can change that date to a date specific at that point in time at the council's will.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just concerned about the effect that will have on anyone who's trying to develop transitional housing right now, because it basically puts a moratorium on it now. If
Point of order,
we're
Mr.
going
Mayor.
back.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
One second, Councillor Harriman. Councillor LaChapelle.
I believe by Robert's rules, the only discussion we can have is in regards to the tabling motion, not any part of this body, a part of the topic. So I appreciate Council Harriman's discussion, but I think it's inappropriate at this point in time. If he has a comment in regards to the tabling motion, that's what we should be discussing.
Thank you. So my concern is if we table this now, then this basically creates a moratorium now, because if it's going to be retroactive back to September 5th, then anyone who's trying to create transitional housing now, they're not going to want to do it because they're going to have this hanging over their head, basically. That's my only concern with that.
Thank you. Further comment from the council? Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that as far as when the moratorium goes into effect, maybe a moot point, because we may not even need to vote on this. This was something we're using as a stopgap measure until we could come up with a outline of what transitional housing is and how it should be out. I'm speaking to the tabling.
Please continue, Councillor McCarthy.
Anyway, so I don't think there's no date, as far as I can see, there's no date mentioned in here, is there?
Yes.
There is a
Yes, there
date.
is.
Oh, okay. Well, that can be changed by the vote of the council, so I don't think the council would maliciously retroact a moratorium just to sabotage something. The idea of the moratorium was to placeholder until we got everything settled, so that's my feelings.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Councillor Clement.
just to perhaps settle something, I believe constitutionally, this could be considered an ex post facto issue if somebody were to try to retroactively enact a moratorium. This would be like passing a law today, making something 5 years ago illegal. So I think that's an issue that is not there, will not be there,
and there's much ado about nothing. So I would ask that we move the question.
Seeing no more comment from the council, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6-0.
Number 9.
Item number 9, order authorizing the granting of an easement on a portion of 478 Canal Street to Strange Quirk Realty LLC for the purpose of installing a generator. Requested action to approve the order authorizing the granting of an easement on a portion of 478 Canal Street to Strange Quirk Realty LLC for the purpose of installing a generator.
May I have a motion, please? Councilor Pease. Second by Councilor Harriman. Discussion? Or, Director Jeffers, please kick us off.
I will try to make it short and sweet. Back in 2005, when the Southern Gateway was redeveloped, there was a parking lot behind what used to be Purdue Global that has since changed hands a couple of times. The current tenant in what used to be Purdue Global is Riverside Eye Center. They have been operating their office out of there. They've been in the process of developing their surgery center to be there. Part of the Medicare rules is that you need to have backup generation. In case you're in the middle of surgery and the power goes out, you want the lights to come back on. And so this is effectively an easement that is allowing them to put a generator on an already existing easement area where we have other electrical components and whatnot. There's a dumpster and there's an easement for, not generators, but I'm drawing a blank on what it's called, but transformer, thank you. Transformers. Ding, 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 ding. Sharp fellow. So that's what we're asking for. It's simply allowing an easement to be done. And I thought it would have gone because it was the and/or signs back in 2005, but because of the various, there were 4 different versions of Franklin Property 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so in the midst of all that, when the real estate transferred to Strange Quirk Realty, the easement did not convey to them.
Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you see the generator hindering anything down there?
You know, I don't. I had thought that perhaps noise, like sometimes we run the City Hall generator during high peak seasons, it's really intended only when power is lost, and it does need to be independent of the power grid, but I think it's basically going to be sitting there unused the vast majority of the time.
I'm not familiar with the land down there. It won't interfere with any future development or any use of the property?
No, if you went through the old Northeast Bank drive-through,
Yep.
and you go through that drive-through and you have to take a left to get to Canal Street, there's a parking lot right in front of you. On the right side is where that easement is.
Okay.
There are already a couple of, not generators, but
Transformers.
transformers there. Transformer there and a dumpster is there already. So it's just going to be same real estate.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only question, do you know how large that generator is going to be?
That's not a question I thought to ask. No, I don't know.
The reason I asked that question is the one, I don't know if it's going to be anywhere close to the size of the ones that are at the high school, but when those run, I can hear them on my street. And they run automatically every other week or something. They go on and they're on for, God, I'm going to have to say at least an hour, and then they shut down. So it's an automatic maintenance thing. I didn't know if this was going to have that.
That's not anything I've been told about. I did ask, and I had an email from the developer today, the owner of Riverside Eye, who said it's really intended purely and solely for when the power goes out. It makes sense that you would want to make sure that it's running, so that it will, but I don't think it needs to run for an hour. It might get fired up once a month just to make sure it I honestly don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. I have no objection of it because I think it's a great idea. I think everybody should have a generator backup. So I was just curious on the size and noise value on it. And there's not too many residential right close there either. Not, you know.
There is no, it's all businesses down in that general area. I mean, you're probably one block off, is up on Park Street. It's the closest.
Thank you.
Councilor LaChapelle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm assuming they're going to be using natural gas, not propane?
Actually, I had thought the same, but I was corrected that thinking natural gas would be quieter by the regulations from Medicare. That has to be absolutely independent of the power grid. And apparently, natural gas could have electrical versions, so that it will be a diesel generator.
So I guess one of my only concern, knowing the neighborhood, working in the neighborhood for the last 40 years, some crazy things happen at night down there. And we have propane tanks that will be sitting right outside. I don't know if the city can put some kind of restriction on covering and protection of the heads on those propane tanks. I'm assuming they're going to put a couple 200-pound tanks out in the back.
Actually, it'll be diesel.
It will be diesel?
It'll be diesel.
Oh, it's gas, diesel. Okay, it's not going to be propane at all. Right. It's just securing it to make sure there's a lock and key. Things disappear down there and to get vandalized, and I would just hate to see a 200-pound or a 500-pound tank become a missile.
Nope, agreed.
So that's, as long as do we have any kind of regulation on securing tanks of that nature in our downtown area? That would be, I don't know if that's a fire department question or if this is, or code or something to that effect. I just know something needs to be secured on that.
I will have the conversation with them. I'm not aware of a code, anything specific in the code to that degree, but there may be something with fire. It just makes sense that you would have something to.
It would definitely make sense, and particularly, somebody's house out in the outskirts of town, it doesn't necessarily have the same issues as being right in the heart of the city.
Agreed.
So I would just be interested in a follow-up later on to find out, are there going to be some kind of requirements? And it's in the best interest of the doctor to have that secured also. It's for everybody. It's not that difficult to put a padlock on it. Thank you.
Councilor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of informational items for the generator probably would require weekly exercising, somewhere between 5 to 15 minutes, depending on the manufacturer and the size of the unit. And number two, I would think that if we issue an easement for this, we could restrict what goes in with the language in the easement. It must be secured. I mean, diesel, you could use that for heating fuel. I mean, any number of things. So secure the tanks so that they're pilfer and vandal resistant, because you can't say they're vandal proof. That's a challenge. People will come and challenge you on that, but I think without a doubt we can restrict what goes in there by language in the easement. And to that point, I would be in favor of it if we do it that way.
Councilor LaChapelle.
Yes, I would be inclined just to add that just the tank is tamper-proof.
Got it.
It's impossible to make sure it's 100% secure, but you understand what we're trying to get at.
I do.
Okay.
And I will convey that. We've got draft easement language, and we can easily add that to it. I'm sure they would like to not have fuel disappear either, so I don't expect any pushback either.
Yeah, no, I agree. Some common sense precautions seem in order. Councilor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can't they bury a tank?
I'm sorry?
Can't they bury the tank?
Restrictions on that under
I'm not sure that the EPA is allowing that anymore. I believe that is really
Well,
frowned
they
upon.
do it for all the gas stations and around.
My understanding is they're changing that, and you have several projects that they're unburying those buried tanks. You will still have some that will be waived, but most of the smaller tanks, which this one would be, would probably not qualify if it's not already buried.
Okay, it was just a question.
Yeah.
That was a good way to protect it, but thank you.
It would be, but yeah.
Public comment for this agenda item. Back to the council. Madam Clerk.
Counselor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6-0.
Agenda item number 10.
Let's see. Item number 10, order authorizing the city administrator to transfer surplus funds from the fiscal year 2020 water bond premium balance in the amount of $50,000 to the Hall and Coburn Water Main Project to cover increased costs of the project. Requested action to approve the order authorizing the city administrator to transfer surplus funds from the FY20 water bond premium in the amount of $50,000 to the Hall and Coburn Water Main Project to cover increased costs of the project.
May I have a motion, please? Councillor Pease.
Second.
Second by Councillor LaChapelle. Director Bruntrick, welcome. Please kick us off.
Yeah, this project finishes off a little neighborhood that's off Androscoggin Ave. That road has been completed, and this is two smaller streets beside that. Just a slight increase in cost, and it also has stormwater and road reconstruction, so the water main part of it was the part that was higher than expected. But the rest of the project is ready to go out to bid if we approve this for the Finance Committee on Monday.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the council? Public comment? Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Council from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6-0.
Item number 11.
Item number 11, resolve authorizing a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $49,149 from the Lewiston Recreation Activities Fund to cover the cost of a full-time employee to oversee the Franklin Pasture Complex scheduling, volunteer program, community outreach, and other related duties. Requested action to approve the resolve authorizing a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $49,149 from the Lewiston Recreation Activities Fund to cover the cost of a full-time employee to oversee the Franklin Pasture Complex scheduling, volunteer program, community outreach, and other related duties.
May I have a motion, please? Councillor Pease, seconded by Councillor Clement. Director Welch.
Yes, thank you, Nicole Welch, Recreation Director. So this idea was presented at the last City Council workshop last month, and we did talk about it briefly earlier this evening. So it would be a full-time position that would support programs and opportunities mentioned in an item Agenda 6 earlier. Kind of four main functions. Number one would be community networking. They would work with Lewiston nonprofits and citizens to increase facility access, and also education regarding how the facility should be used, how do you go about renting the facility, what is a certificate of insurance, how do you get that. It would hopefully take down a lot of the hurdles that a lot of people have when they're trying to rent a facility, but then they would also work with local nonprofits to make sure that they get access to the facility as well. They would also recruit and assist with managing the Franklin Pasture Community Group that we've been working with. I think these cleanups that we're organizing are great on so many levels. It's good for the community, good for the facility. It's a great chance for folks to give back to a school that they love for so many years. And we really want to keep that going. But unfortunately, that's a whole other group of volunteers to have to oversee. So being able to add another full-time position to help with that supervision would be really beneficial to the department and the school. So the second function would be assist with supervision of athletic field scheduling and facility in general. We've heard Director Jason Fuller talk about the tasks needed to oversee the facility. We've heard from Megan Bates, Public Works, talk about what has to go in the facility. Having a recreation employee there to be able to assist with any of our internal event setups, any internal program setups, and just to have somebody else having another set of eyes on the facility would be one of the goals. They'd also be assisting with the development of an inclusive recreation model for the city, including the development of more organized public programs. And number 4 would be to support existing Lewiston Recreation Department programs as well. Given the recreation man hours to provide more to the city, obviously we have a huge summer season for Franklin Pasture, but we have November to April / early May, depending on how the snow falls. Their goal during the off season when Franklin Pasture is not available would be to look at the more free and low-cost programs to be able to offer. We have snowshoes in-house. We can offer snowshoeing out at Randall Road or somewhere downtown. I've kind of quasi-talked about bringing back a inter-school, elementary school basketball program. I know that was a fan favorite 5 or 6 years ago, and we'd really like to see that come back and get after some really great perks to the community in general. Again, just a couple of small examples of how else that they can be doing good work for the community aside from just overseeing Franklin pasture.
Thank you very much, Director. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Welch, the $49,149, is that a full year or is that just a partial year?
Nope, it starts November 1st. That would be assuming that we go out to post tomorrow, you have 2 weeks to post, figure in 3 to 4 weeks to interview and kind of set things up. So November 1 would be the earliest date.
So what's the full-year cost on this?
You know that?
It's going to be about $90,000. There's some one-time costs that are included in this number, getting the phone, the workstation, the computer that you're not going to have replicated, but once we have a person on board, we'll know what the fringe benefits are, so we're estimating about $90,000.
And is this going to be paid by the rec department's fund, or is it just the initial year being paid by the rec department's fund and then being funded through the city after that?
It's, like I said during the workshop, it's very typical for departments to be able to carry the cost of full-time employees, and I think that this is a situation that we can do this. Down the road, talked about fringe, that's a whole other conversation, but definitely as far as the meat and potatoes of the position, the hourly wages and everything, seeing how things can shape up at the end of the year, that'd be the goal. We're adding programs every day. We're hoping to add another adult soccer program. We have more adult programs in general. We're hoping 1.5 years, 2 years down the road, we can have more childcare opportunities. We're on a really good spiral, and by offering more programs to the community, hopefully we'll be able to give back more to the community as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor LaChapelle.
Thank you. Can you just review that again quickly for me on the cost? $90,000 per year?
That is the worst-case scenario. That includes all fringe benefits.
Okay, so I'm shocked. Now, first of all, the rec department's doing an awesome job. I have a hard time sitting here to approve when I hear a school teacher, and I don't know if she's gone, the single mother with 2 kids, they're starting off at $40,000 a year, trying to teach it, has 4 years of education. No disrespect, we're getting somebody to come in for planning to play soccer or watch a field, and we're going to pay them $90,000. I cannot support anything like that. And so maybe I'm off, but the math doesn't seem right. Now, that's with benefits. And so let's take out the first year office equipment setup. What does it come back after that?
Do you have the breakdown, Tracy?
So they're not going to spend $20,000 to set up an office?
No.
Because we can go to Marden's and pick up a phone and a desk and a chair for a couple $1,000s.
That's correct.
The position itself will be posted at between $19 and $21 an hour. So the rest of that
How does
is.
that come up to $90,000?
Hold on one second. I guess if we can have a breakdown of the 90,000, Administrator Hunter?
We can send that out. That's assuming if this person takes Maine State retirement, if they're on the family health insurance. All of those, family health insurance is running what?
About 20,000.
Yeah, that's 20,000 alone on the family coverage.
Okay, so let's bring that back down. That's $70,000. So family health, it's still $70,000 to schedule
Maine
soccer
State retirement is probably going to be about 10,000.
Okay, so we're down to $60,000
Yep.
to schedule soccer games.
Well, 1 second, Councilor. Please continue, Administrator.
We have the cell phone stipend, we have workers' comp, and which one am I, we have the flex and the FSA and the, what's the other one? HRA. Thank you. The acronyms for those. So that's between the two, those are going to be about 5,000 each. And then you have the workers' comp, because this is going to be considered a parks position, so that's at a higher percentage than a regular office staff person. So we can circulate the breakdown for you.
And
I stopped until, do I still have the floor, Mr. Mayor?
if I may, for 1 second, Councillor.
Certainly.
And sorry, you were saying, Director Welsh, what is the position starting out at?
It was between 19 and 20.50, right around there, but so about $20 an hour, at 37.5 hours per week.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Councillor LaChapelle. Please continue.
That's only $40,000 a year. So I guess, listen, you're doing a wonderful job in the rec department. I'm so thrilled to see things coming back in the rec department. My grandchildren are involved in there, my children are involved in there, and so this is in no way a reflection on what you're doing, and you're doing a marvelous job. I have a hard time voting in $90,000 a year when I hear a teacher crying because she can't make it with her 2 kids, and $40,000 a year. I start doing this, another $40,000 a year on top of that. So I would vote in favor of this if that dollar amount was lower. At this point in time, I cannot support this dollar amount for this position. And in no way does this reflect on what an awesome job you're doing. So I don't want to come off harsh towards the rec department. You're doing a good job. It's just balancing everything. It's balancing everything, and I just feel this is way too high of a salary when we have other areas that need some of that money. That's my feeling. Thank you.
Councillor Harriman.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying, because my question was about the 49,000 and if that was an entire year, which I thought was quite low for a full-time employee. So that sounds more in line with what I expect. If that's just, I assume that's going from November 1st until the end of the fiscal year.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so about 9 months. All right. Yeah, I think this is a great idea to be able to get more eyes on the field and help with some of those things. Like I said in the previous agenda item, I appreciate this approach and what you're doing here. So I would be in support of this. Thank you.
Director Welsh, this position would also, if I'm understanding things correctly, would this alleviate some of the responsibilities that Director Fuller now has?
It wouldn't alleviate some of the responsibilities he has. It would take a little bit off of my plate. Right now, I oversee all the scheduling of Franklin Pasture. I work with Director Fuller. But given the nuts and bolts of the position that's being proposed, they would be much better apt because they would know more of the day-to-day operations and working schedules and such, and that would take a little bit more off my plate so that we can work on expanding other services offered by the Recreation Department for the city.
And certainly, we've heard from Director Fuller, who has really borne the brunt of maintaining these fields. Should this position pass, this would undoubtedly make Director Fuller's job a little easier.
It would definitely take some of the work on the outside rentals off of him. For example, we have a couple of Saturday and Sunday rentals scheduled for this October. They're all Lewiston nonprofits, which is really great. And he's not here tonight because he has a couple home games. He's, as you know him, he's at the field all the time. So I think it would be great for, if the city can provide some support for him on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, because those are when those rentals are happening. So that way he doesn't have to be there 7 days a week.
Thank you. Yes, I urge the council to pass this. I think this makes a lot of sense, and it's my opinion we should have had this position a long time ago. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to table this until the councilors have a breakdown of the financials, so it's an informed decision we're making. That's my feeling on this. I don't think it would be fair to kill it without knowing all the information, and I think to table it to the next meeting would be the proper thing to do.
Second.
There's now a motion to table. Discussion on that motion. Councilor Clement.
I would be against the motion to table. I think this is entirely reasonable. I think it's what we've been talking about most of the summer now. We need to get this in place, and tabling it is not going to accomplish anything. I think if need be, as we move down, there are other options available to us. Tabling is not the answer, Mr. Mayor.
Further comments on tabling? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Sure. Counselor from Ward 4?
Is this the motioning table?
Yes.
Tabling motion, thank you. Yes.
Yes. Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
No.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
No.
Mr. Mayor?
No.
Motion fails. Vote is 3-3. Motion fails.
We are now back with the main motion, and I will now be heading to public comment for this agenda item.
Thank you, everyone. I never spoke here, but I truly appreciate what you brought up because a lot of...
Excuse me, do you mind introducing yourself and
Oh.
stating where you live?
Sorry, my name is Hawa Ali, and some of you knows me as Eve. I work in a 3-year grant that help BIPOC youth in the community of Lewiston, Auburn. I live in Lewiston. I work in Lewiston. I have 2 children in Lewiston. And I have participated in a lot of forums with some of you here. And we have talked about the issues that youth face. It's really disappointing to see that they're not represented and nobody wants to talk for them. I'm not a public speaker, but I wanted to make sure that their voice is heard tonight. And I truly support the idea of having someone who's going to help and connect the community. And you mentioned that this is a lot of money and that our school teachers are not getting paid enough, and this is taxpayers. But the school teacher problem was not the community problem. She was complaining about housing, and that is a different problem. And every community have their problem, but I think the people we're talking about is they pay taxes too. The children we want to hire someone to keep those places open for, their parents pay taxes too. And I think we should give them the opportunity, because a lot of people in the community talk about how bad they're doing, how their drugs are getting, there's a lot of drugs, there's a lot of crime. If you're voting to close and, voting against the motions that are going to help the community, we're just going to see an increase of those things. But if you want to make this community better, I think we should agree that to work on things that's going to make a community better, instead of saying, these people are this, and we're not going to allow you to have that. Those are 2 different problems. These 2 communities are these two problems are separate, and they should be dealt separately. I think that was a legitimate claim from the teacher. It hurt my heart. But also the community, those are the future. Those are American young people. They are not white. They're BIPOC, most of them. They play soccer. A lot of their parents have 2 jobs. They don't know where to go. They don't speak English. I think having that person, especially someone who understands cross culture and who can bring people together, will be beneficial. And we all pay taxes here. And I think hiring someone, regardless of their salary, will be something that we need in this community. Thank you.
Thank you all. Luke Jensen, Ward 5, 11 Sylvan Avenue. Overall, I wanted to speak in favor of the proposal. Hearing the 90K figure, my ears kind of perked up too, so I'm very glad you guys asked some follow-up questions. I'm sure if I were still on the council, those would be exactly the questions that I would ask too. So I'm kind of curious about the breakdown as well. Overall, I do think the position is needed. So I guess in 2 ways, and one in the sense that we've been talking about getting more activities for youth, more recreational activities, just getting fields available and organizing some events and getting leagues together, which I hear is happening. It's awesome to hear. That's the exact kind of thing that would get people involved. I remember, I graduated high school in 2009 before we had these awesome fields. And I remember all the time with my friends looking around for an open field just to go, play a game of, pick up football or something. So seeing these seeing these available now, it provides a good opportunity for the city. So if we can make sure that we can maintain the facilities correctly, we can have these opportunities for youth. And I've also been pretty vocal that I feel like the Lewiston's reputation needs to change, and we're not going to change it by saying, hey, we're different, or hey, LA, it's happening here. We're going to change it when people come here and they have a good experience. That moves us one step forward. They come here, they have a bad experience, it moves us 3 steps back. So our goal should be that every single time someone comes from outside of Lewiston to Lewiston, they have a good experience. We need to make sure the gateways they come through are good. The places that they visit are well maintained around there. So what does that have to do with the fields? Well, I think the athletic fields could be an absolute gem and an economic boost for the city. And they could really be something that could help change our reputation as a city. If you're someone that's coming from out of Lewiston, Auburn area, you may think, oh boy, I'm coming to Lewiston, the downtown area. Oh boy, what am I in for? If you come to these fields, you watch your kid play soccer, do some track event or something, that's going to be a good experience. And so being able to maintain these fields properly is not just good for the people that come here, but it is going to be amazing for our reputation. The turf fields attract people from pretty far away. There aren't a whole lot of turf fields in the state. When these fields were being built, I remember a big part of it was that it will attract people from other school districts. Other districts will use it. So hiring this position makes it more likely that the fields are going to be the way that we need them to be. I'm a little disappointed that Mr. Fuller, Jason Fuller won't, I guess, be getting a little bit more support, because he definitely seems like he needs to. But I'm happy that our recreation department's getting a little bit more support, because I know Director Welch is doing quite a bit here, along with Megan. Again, just to kind of, I guess, cap this, I'm really supportive of the position. It's going to do a lot for the city, a lot more than people, I think, are even thinking about. It's much more than just, helping to organize things for the recreation department for the fields. It's going to be a boost for the city, and it will be well worth the money. Again, I'm curious to see where the breakdown is for the $90K, but I hope you guys support the position.
Good evening, everyone. Jake Langley, Superintendent of Lewiston Public Schools. I want to first thank the staff that have led this effort, but I also want to make note that the biggest issue we've had with the fields is a lack of supervision. So when the fields are occupied and being used in productive, meaningful ways, we don't have the issues that we have otherwise. This effort to have someone as staff would be there to help organize and supervise things, but also keeps our kids active, which is healthy for them, as you know, in so many ways. And I just think of our community and the level of engagement, and we talk about school pride, school success, it all builds back to what we teach our youth. And I think if we can support this effort, we're going to be teaching our youth how to use the fields appropriately at the youngest of ages, how to use our courts appropriately. And I am just one of the people that believes every court should have sneaker sounds, every field should be being used, and I think as a community we become healthier, stronger, and just a better position to have our youth raise their youth here with the understanding and appreciation that there's some unity behind this. This is us showing that we're one, and that they can pass down these lessons and understandings and expectations of the fields and their appropriate use moving forward. Thank you.
Administrator Hunter, would you like to add something?
Sure. Crunching numbers over here. If we keep this at the entry level, which we have not been terribly successful at in this labor market, we are looking at, on average, about $73,000 to $77,000. If we are talking mid-range, which is what we have been looking at, that's where you're getting into the $90,000 range.
Thank you, Administrator Hunter. Further public comment on this agenda item?
Good evening. My name is Joshua Petrowitz of 145 Summer Street, Apartment 1 in Lewiston. I was just curious, the 37.5 hours, what is the breakdown of a daily routine schedule? Will they be working consistent school hours? Will they be working off hours where kids might be using the fields? Obviously, supervision seems to be the primary concern. Anyone able to answer that?
Thank you. So the position would currently have, it would be a Tuesday through Saturday work week. So that way they could do a lot of the off hours and such. We have a position currently in our department that's similar. It's called the Recreation Building Aid, where it's a Tuesday through Saturday schedule, and the primary hours are, 12 to 8, 2 to whatever. And so like they have that 8 or for this situation, like a 7.5 hour, kind of shift. So that way they can accommodate and meet the needs of the community. So it wouldn't be a Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 position.
With that being the case, I initially got up here thinking that $90,000 a year would probably be better served being injected into our public schools and having a teacher run a classroom of 15 or 16 children and multiply our man hours, so to speak. I've come before this council and my constituents before to discuss that. And I believe that if we could multiply the man hours, have a classroom effect with this, students will take pride if they're given credit for this. I believe volunteering has been low-level turnout for these events, and that's unfortunate. I myself was not able to make it, and I would like to apologize for that. But I believe that as a city, if we are giving these children credit, they will take pride in this. There is a way where the freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior class could receive an elective, and throughout the year, we could multiply our man hours. That's my only proposal. Thank you.
Further public comment for this agenda item? Back to the council. Yep. Step right up.
My name's Dave Belleru. I live in Auburn, but I've worked in Lewiston for 35 years. I was just thinking about the position because it sounded like a great position. I'm Portuguese by descent. I played soccer my whole life and thought, what a great position. But if you're talking about $19 an hour to $20 an hour, that's not a lot of pay. I don't know what the overhead is. That's not a lot of pay to get somebody that's really trained and really knows what he's doing. I don't know about you, but I couldn't take that job. So I don't think it's too much to pay the guy.
Further public comment? Back to the council. Councilor LaChapelle.
May I ask the superintendent a question?
Jake, if you'd be so kind as to move back to the podium. Excuse me, Mr. Superintendent.
Sir, when a new teacher comes into the school system, what is their starting pay with benefits and everything wrapped in together?
I mean, the city administrator got it spot on. So we have, so if you're a first-year teacher with no experience, its base salary is $40,500. That goes up exponentially from there based on your degree and your years of experience. But your overhead costs with fringe and state fees and all of that it's a significant number.
So it's very similar to this, this pay?
It would be the same. It would be the same.
I'll stop smiling. No, I understand. Listen, I pay $800 and some odd a month for my health insurance, and I have a $20,000 deductible. I understand because of my age bracket and all that good stuff. I understand. It's just, it's difficult when I hear your teacher saying what she's saying, and I look at, and again, not taking anything away, Director, of somebody scheduling soccer games, and we're going to give them $90,000 a year. And people lose track of what the benefits are actually worth and what the time off, the 14 weeks vacation that a lot of people get after so many years. I'm exaggerating just a little bit.
So you're not talking to me.
Okay, so it's just, I just have a hard time. Am I saying it's, I'm sorry, I'm rattling. Thank you so very much for that.
I think one thing worth mentioning, though, is while many teachers put in hours at night, weekends, and over the summer when they don't have to, per se, and so I don't want to say this in a way that diminishes what our teachers do because they're saints. But teachers work a 182-day calendar. That's their schedule. So it's 175 days of school and 7 days of professional development workshops, things like that. And the rest of the days are not part of that contract. So you could see some diminishing costs for lower level first step teachers because of that limited number of days versus a full year-round employee like the city's talking about.
Okay, thank you. So, as city administrator, is this position that we're hiring, or whoever, is there a requirement for a college degree? What kind of requirements are there for this position?
So right now, the job description is written in that they have a associate's degree or a equal amount of experience to what they would get from a two-year associate's degree.
Thank you. Yes, I think it's worth it to have it, we need it. I just can't swallow $90,000 a year for this position. I look at the manager over at Hannaford Brothers. I look at some of the meat cutter that's been doing it for 20 years. They're not making $90,000 a year doing it. I look at the bread salesman that's out there. I just have a hard time justifying it. Thank you. Sorry for moving on.
Councillor McCarthy.
That's my name. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, at this point, it's paid for through this, it will be paid for through this fiscal year. And, you know, like any position, we'll be looking at the whole budget in the springtime. And at that point, you know, we'll have some time with that person to see how effective they are being. And then we can make a decision at that point in time. So I think the best thing to is move forward with it, get some experience on how well they help out, how well they are effective, and then worry about it next budget season. Thank you.
Councillor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councillor LaChapelle's point, we're really not paying them $90,000 a year. That's with everything. I mean, you add the fringe in, and it looks like they're making $90,000 a year. I remember a situation years ago where no fringe was added in the personnel detail of a budget in the city I worked. New man comes on board and adds fringe. All of a sudden, everyone is making $30,000 plus more than they were the day before that budget was published. And people, you know, just went crazy. You're making that much money? No. If my retirement were based on that amount of money, hey, I'd be happy. But no, we're not making that amount of money. To the $90,000, I can think of at least one position in the city budget that I could find $90,000 for, because we're talking a position, $90,000, that is currently vacant, I believe. At least that's what we were told it was, total with fringe. I think this position is much more worthwhile than that, and I would vote at our next budget session, if I'm here to vote on it, to take that money from that position and put it into this. So I say move ahead with this position, and let's get it going. Let's protect our fields and not have to spend millions of dollars taking care of further vandalism and stuff. Let's get the thing moving. Come on. Thank you.
So I understand, you know, companies and the city of Lewiston are dealing with increased wages and the cost to hire people. It has certainly risen over the years, and I understand the concern about this amount being perceived as too much. I do think, however, that this position will pay, the benefits from this position will be far in excess of $90,000 in terms of community development, relieving stress on current employees, and giving our kids something to do. Further comments from the council? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor from Ward 4?
No.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 5 to 1.
We are now up to reports and updates from the council. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a little update on the airport. We're working with, there's 3 airplanes, one that's flyable and 2 that are not flyable, that are parts planes, that we're working to get rid of to empty the hangar. We've got a deal with one. In fact, the plane may be gone by now. I don't know. Got a meeting out there tomorrow. But it's returning some, it's helping cut down on what the losses we took from Elite closing up shop. And if everything goes, the other 2 planes, the deal we're trying to strike now is that a parts, airplane part, used parts supplier is going to take the planes, dismantle them and sell them. And they're going to pay us some money up front to take them. And then they'll recoup some of their money, and then from the first year of selling, We'll get 70% of the parts, and they'll take 30% up until we recoup $300,000. So the possibility is there that all of our losses will be negated by selling the aircraft that are there, plus the $140,000 that we got from the sale of surplus equipment. So the airport's moving in the right direction, and hopefully we'll be out of the hole by the end of this fiscal year. Thank you.
Has the position been posted for the administrator?
No, at this point, we're holding off on that. We've had a person leave that was the operations supervisor, so we've got interviews this week for a new operations supervisor. We're trying to get a handle on on the needs that a new manager would need to cover, because the old manager had 11 or 12 employees, and we're down to 4.5 employees. So we want to get a firm grip on the responsibilities and duties before we post that position.
So I guess what does timeline look like in terms of posting? Like, what is the board thinking?
We were originally hoping to have a new manager hired by January. That's still up in the air, but that was our target date, and we haven't talked about moving that target date at this point in time.
Thank you. Further reports and updates? We're on to new business. Is there any?
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Clement, yes.
Hoist this flag for my colleagues to consider, but I'd like to direct staff to investigate the implementation of an impact fee that would apply to any venture, undertaking, or proposal which would require additional city resources of any type, for example, police, fire, schools, general assistance at all. I would ask that we get a report back within 60 days. I don't know how you'd like to proceed, whether we do a thumbs up, or would you like a formal motion on this? Do we need to suspend the rules? I think we can direct staff to do something like this without a problem.
Are you finished at this point?
I am.
Okay. Councillor Harriman?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. Is that a new venture by anybody in the city, or by city staff, or by, I'm just not clear.
Well, I don't know that it is clear, Councillor. It says apply to any venture which would require additional city resources. I mean, I think as we discussed, this is a concept at this point in time. It's an idea or a concept. It hasn't been fleshed out yet. Give us an opportunity to bandy it about and see what we come up with.
Are you suggesting, sorry, Councillor Harriman?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to think, like, if I'm a property developer and I want to build this building here, is that what you mean by a venture?
Quite possibly, depending on what kind of resources would be involved. Are you going to require that we have an additional 10 policemen, an additional fire engine, an additional company to go with the fire department? Are we going to add 150 kids to our school system? Are these people that are going to be applying for general assistance? This sort of thing. If it's going to impact us negatively, I'm looking ahead for the next 3 years. Things are going to be rather bleak in the city of Lewiston. If they aren't bleak already, then they certainly will be by the time the next 3 years are over. And I just think we need to look ahead at ways to minimize the impact on the city and its resources. This is just one idea. It doesn't mean we have to do it. We're asking to investigate. We're asking staff to look at this and come back to us with a report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess at this point, I'd like to hear staff's input on this.
We can take a look at models that are out there. I know the National League of Cities have some impact fees, samples and case studies. I know from a cost accounting standpoint, we've done that through our utility funds and our stormwater. So it is in the realm of possibilities. swag comes into play when you've reached that tipping point where you may have capacity, but if you have two projects that hit at the same time, individually you may be able to take them. If they both happen at the same time, then you need to, at that point, it's a significant tipping point that you need to invest in, I don't know, additional fire station or truck or something like that. So there will need to be some significant assumptions made when we look at those models. But yeah, we can take a look at them and host a workshop on that prior to, I'm assuming prior to the budget would make sense to start looking at some of the variable and fixed cost with that.
That would be my idea, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would like staff's input on it and then to workshop the idea. And then-
That's basically what we're asking for. Ask them to look at it and come back with a report. If they say, hey, it's nothing we should get involved in, then we'll talk further. But if they come back with a recommendation we like or dislike, then we'll act appropriate. I just think we'd be foolish not to investigate the possibility. Had telling, not knowing, they say.
Do you need anything from us to at least look into the matter, Administrator Hunter?
I'm assuming there's consensus based upon the head nods. So then I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Further new business.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor LaChapelle.
I have a statement I wanted to read. It saddens me that I'm forced to speak out about an issue that we should have all agreed on, an issue that has moved from a sound attempt to improve our city to political posturing and pandering to a small group of people. I am speaking about the newest mayoral ad hoc committee. As I stated last city council meeting, I was very concerned that Mayor Shalene, Council President Scott, and others got on social media and fanned the flames of discontent towards the Lewiston Police Department. Instead of being leaders and voices of reason, they chose pandering to anti-police activists in the city I love. We had an act of violence on Knox Street that had nothing, I repeat, nothing to do with the police department. But somehow this group, led by elected officials, has turned it into blaming the police. Chief St. Pierre chose to be a leader and he immediately planned a community meeting so that all could be heard. But unlike good leaders, Mayor Shalene and Council President Scott stepped in and decided to hold their own event 2 days prior to Chief St. Pierre's previously scheduled meeting, which turned into a police bashing session. Now we move forward a week and I find out that Mayor Shalene and Council President Scott have formed an advisory committee on community safety. True leaders would have involved everyone in this process and would have asked the general public if anybody would be interested in serving. And just who is on this committee? The mayor chose to exclude people like Sergeant Tyler Mishu, who is in charge of the Crime Reduction Unit for LPD. He is also the sergeant in charge of the officers on all the special task force in Lewiston, like the MDEA, DEA, FBI, and ATF, and more. Instead, he chose a convicted felon who, while in the county jail, was not allowed to use the phones because he continued to call the family of the LPD sergeant who arrested him and threatened them. Another committee appointee, one who relentlessly disrupted the meeting about community safety that LPD hosted, has made her attitude towards the police clear since a few years ago, when she led protests targeting local law enforcement as scapegoats for a heinous crime committed halfway across the country. She led an angry crowd of chants demanding that our brave officers protecting the Twin Cities literally fall on their knees and kneel on the ground because she said so. Is this behavior productive, positive cooperation, or bullying tactics? Are these really the kind of people we want serving on a committee allegedly dedicated to community safety? To move this city forward, we need strong, inclusive leadership, not political grandstanding. I am sad that these people are not the ones for us. I, for one, stand with the men and women of the Lewiston Police and Fire Departments, and my faith in them is unwavering. Thank you.
Councillor Clement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to mention some recently experienced emotions. Disappointment, skepticism, abandonment, astonishment, and most importantly, indignation. What invoked these various emotions? In my opinion, it was last Wednesday when our mayor issued an email announcing the creation of yet another ad hoc committee, this time to delve into the issue of community safety, or perhaps more accurately, the feeling of safety amongst some in the community. This was done on the sly and without any prior discussion, except among the three council elite on the committee. There was no effort to solicit thoughts or comments from the legislative branch of the city, but just an ex post facto announcement of what had been done, in this instance, the formation of a morale-busting group to disparage a fine group of dedicated and loyal professionals that willingly put their very lives on the line to protect and serve our great city. And this just before his honor's standing for re-election. Certainly, community safety is and should be an issue of interest to all our elected officials, all of them, not just a myopic subsection of those who have no expertise, but rather an apparent motive of bashing our police in an effort to bring about a predefined outcome of establishing some type of review board to lord over our constabulary by way of raw political grandstanding. Other than the mayor, council president, and Ward 3 councilor, none of whom can legitimately profess any expertise in any field of public safety, police management, community safety, or even enforcement tolerance. We have a committee that includes a convicted felon, an ardent anti-police race baiter, and folks who were so quick to throw gasoline on a volatile situation when, following a regrettable and violent incident on Knox Street in late July, unarmed with any facts and unhindered by any sense of leadership, they demanded accountability of the police for something not of their making. Talk about a political stunt. Before the dust had settled, Mayor Shalene called into question the safety of our community. This was an act of pure, unadulterated political grandstanding, playing on the raw emotions of a citizenry that had just been subjected to a vile double homicide committed by young members of our community that found it necessary and advisable to arm themselves for who knows what, a feeling of invincibility, power, protection, if they were to be engaged in some type of illegal enterprise. Rather than an open, honest attempt at developing a balanced, fair, and analytical approach, this group has predetermined and even announced that a civilian review board is necessary. And this without even the slightest idea of what such a group is or does. But let's not let the facts stand in the way of grandstanding. When confronted with the definition of what a CRB is, does, or even exists for, our council president admitted that is not what she wanted. I'm disappointed that any city resources of any type will be allowed to be used in this venture. I'm sorely disappointed that Chief St. Pierre has been shanghaied and will have to sit and be the target of what can logically be seen as the slings and arrows of hate, merely because he has dedicated himself to an honorable service within his community and because a token target is thought to be needed. Chief St. Pierre should be commended and correctly and courageously stepped up after the incident, was scheduled 2 meetings with members of the public, the first with some of the culturally affected community members, the second with the public at large. Apparently not content with this, the mayor with the council president decided to jump line, scramble ahead, and hold their own session first, which was clearly choreographed to smear and impale a dedicated group of loyal professionals who have demonstrated their worth to Maine's second largest city by achieving and maintaining CALIA accreditation for over 25 years. Only 5 agencies of Maine have done this, and Lewiston is the largest of all. Shame on this entire concept. Shame on those who chose to move forward in such an ill-advised manner. Let's hope the voters remember this attempt to eviscerate the very service that keeps this city safe. Let's demand that everyone get behind our police and cooperate. In order to be effective, the police need our cooperation. Let's rid this great city of crime. That is the very scourge that is encompassing us. How about establishing a cooperative effort, such as a neighborhood watch, instead of watching our neighbors spew venom against the system. I stand firmly behind our police and fire departments. I will defend them to the hilt before allowing political grandstanders to dedicate policy. Speak up, people. Email or write your support. This is your city, your police. They deserve our support. I thank you.
Further new business? Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was a little upset about this whole safety issue coming up. I agree that on social media that several individuals spoke inaccurately about what was going on. They took the Lewiston Police Department to task over an investigation that was run by the Maine State Police. And, you know, there was nothing they could do about it. There was protocol on how to handle the crime scene. There was protocol on how to handle the individuals. And that was out of the hands of the police, the local police department, but yet they're the ones that were called to task on that. I attended both of those meetings, the safety meetings. I was very disappointed that one was scheduled before the other. It was to set an agenda, unfortunately. I agree that this is political grandstanding by the individuals that are putting this together. I think that this committee there's a result, and they formed a committee to get that result that they want, not that they want a true result of a true analysis of what's going on and what needs to be done. I know for a fact that the formation of this committee has struck at the heart of the men and women of our wonderful police department. Nothing could knock morale more than the concept of, wow, we've got to watch over your shoulder because we don't like what you're doing. And this is by individuals purportedly to be felons, to be anti-police individuals. Those are not the people to look at the crime situation in the city of Lewiston. I myself am not in favor of a citizens review board. The way I interpret the way the police department should be handled is we have a extremely competent chief of police and his subordinates. I liken a complaint against a police officer like a complaint against an employee in a business. It's reported to HR. HR deals with it. It's not a public event. And I think that nothing will further deter the police from enjoying their job and doing their job professionally than to have someone looking over their shoulder and misinterpreting their every move. So I am not in favor of this committee. I know personally my wife was extremely upset with me because I didn't tell her about the committee being formed. I had to tell her that I had no idea about it until it was formed. She spoke eloquently at the second meeting and would have been a good asset to have on that committee, but she didn't have the opportunity because no one was solicited from the general public. It was a foregone conclusion before the committee was even formed. So I'm disappointed in that whole process. Thank you.
Any other new business? For the public's benefit, I appreciate Chief St. Pierre serving on the committee as well as the rest of the committee members, and I look forward to them meeting soon. Seeing no further new business, Councilor Clement.
The mayor may appreciate the chief serving on the committee. The chief did not have any say in whether or not he was serving on that committee. I indicated he was shanghaied. He does not wish to be there. And I've heard today that our district attorney, had he known what this committee was all about, would probably not have said he would serve either. I haven't been able to confer with him. But let's not candy things up a little bit here. Let's be honest, let's be transparent. Thank you.
Councillor LaChapelle.
City Administrator, what kind of city resources are being dedicated to this ad hoc committee, if any?
My understanding is there is the chief of police that will serve on the committee. We had an administrative assistant schedule the first meeting. Meetings after that will be coordinated by the committee members themselves, and I believe they are meeting in the Callahan Hall. So those are the only resources I'm aware of.
So do we have the authority to request that no other city resources be dedicated to this ad hoc committee?
That would be the council's purview.
So how would we do that to make that official? If, like we had earlier, 4 of us are nodding our heads right now, is that marching orders for the city administration?
If you want to give general instruction, you can do that, or you can suspend the rules and make it in a form of a motion.
I think general instructions is good enough, like we did earlier. I guess I would, if the chief is on it, the chief is on it, but I would request that no other city funds or resources be dedicated to this committee. Is there anybody else in agreement with me at this point?
Yes.
So you have 4 of us that are nodding our heads.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like, I would kindly ask the administrator to check with legal about that.
Yep.
Thank you. Further new business.
I would ask that the administrator.
Councillor Clement.
I would ask the administrator to advise us what legal has to say about that. We may have a formal motion coming, depending on what legal has to say.
And
Thank you.
While we're talking with legal, does the council have the ability to remove the chief of police from that position also? If we're going to get full legal advice and require that no city staff or funds be dedicated towards that ad hoc committee at all? Does the council have purview to that?
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Clement, yes.
I would suggest that we have the authority. We can direct the city administrator to not allow the chief of police on that committee. Check with legal on that. But I think that we can give the direct order to the city administrator, and the city administrator can do with that direct order what she pleases. I would hope it doesn't come to that. But I know that you have soured a lot of people. You heard evidence of that here earlier this evening. And one of the best operating departments in the state of Maine. And you're turning them right around, sir. I don't think our chief needs to be sitting there. That's my opinion. And I would never sit on a committee, save for an order from my boss, which I think is what happened here. I don't have absolute confirmation of that, but I don't think you'd have the chief of police on that committee unless his superior indicated he should be there. The council seems to feel a little differently about that. So check with legal and see what they have to say, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but if we're going to look at one thing from legal, let's look at the whole picture.
For complete transparency, I did ask Administrator Hunter if the chief of police could serve.
I understand that, sir.
If I may finish, Councillor.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So I asked our administrator if the chief could serve, and she indicated that he would. And I had a subsequent conversation with him, as I did with all the committee members, and he said that he would serve. I would not agree that he's serving under duress.
Well, you don't have to agree with that, sir. I've spoken with him, I've spoken with several people, and I think had the choice been his, he wouldn't be there. I think he was advised, I think he might have asked a question, something to the effect, do I have to do this? You'd probably better. Now, I don't know who for sure that came from, but I think you'll find that you're operating under a little bit of a fantasy there. But I'm willing to let the thing ride and let legal look at it, and then we'll have another discussion. This is, as I said earlier, this is political grandstanding and nothing but. Thank you.
Should that conversation have happened, I was not privy to that conversation. Further new business from the council? Madam Clerk, may I have a motion to adjourn? Or Madam Clerk, we're trying to adjourn.
Yes, we'll assume there's a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And seconded.
Thank you,
Yes.
Councilors. Counselor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Excellent. Motion passed by a vote of 6 to 0. Thank you.
Have a great evening, Lewiston. Thank you.